Legends, welcome back to another Ruck Infringement Podcast special guest interview. This week's special guest is none other than Adam Mogg. Adam, how you going, mate?
Good, mate. How are you?
Mate, I am fantastic. It is a pleasure to have you on, your first time on the Ruck Infringement Podcast. Mate, let's get straight into it. Now, the first question everyone wants to know is, who is Adam Mogg?
I'm just a father of two lovely kids, happily married. I live on the Sunshine Coast and was lucky enough to play a handful of NRL games and, just enjoying life.
Mate, absolutely love it. Now, take us through growing up. We'll start off when you were young. Were you always into sport, and was it always rugby league, or did you have other sports around you as well?
I grew up I was born in Toowoomba in Queensland, and I first discovered rugby league as a 9-year-old. My brother was playing at the Newtown Lions in Toowoomba, and he was actually in the same team as Steve Price and Ian Durnham, and Ian went on to play for the Cowboys, and I think Steve Price needs no introduction. Bulldog to Queensland legend, and I went down to watch my brother play, and I said to Mum and Dad, I want to play rugby league, and that was at 9 years old and in Toowoomba, and from then on I just kept playing.
Mate, that's fantastic. I love to hear that. Start when you're young and continue. That's the way to do it. Mate, let's talk about rugby league now from a idol point of view. Did you have an idol when you were growing up?
Yeah, like most Queenslanders, mate, in my era anyway. I'm sort of getting on a bit now, but I grew up and watched the days of the BRL was really strong, but we had Wally Lewis running around, and he was the captain of Queensland, and for me to watch the King Wally play New South Wales, it was something I very much looked forward to. And one of the first teams I ever sort of barracked for was actually the Balmain Tigers.
Wow.
Gary Jack and Steve Roach, and only because I got a jersey, my first sort of, I guess, rugby league jersey brought for me for a birthday was the Balmain Tigers. But then when State of Origin come around, I was all for Queensland and Wally Lewis, and we were always underdogs, and he was always the man to lead Queensland to the victory in my eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, fantastic player, and just hearing some of the stories over the years, it would have been an incredible time. But, mate, let's talk about the clubs you played for before cracking first grade. Can you take us through some of them?
Yeah, mate, as I said, I started in Toowoomba, and I left Toowoomba as a sort of 10-year-old, and we moved to the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, and ended up playing under 12s for the Canberra Sharks as an 11-year-old. And I went from playing front row and under 9s to sort of playing halfback and under 12s, and I was one of those kids that never grew until I was in my late teens, and played for the Canberra Sharks, the Quanah Dolphins, and then at 19 years old, I ended up playing 5 years at Redcliffe in the Queensland Cup for the Redcliffe Dolphins, and it was a club that I'm very proud of that I played for, and we played. I played there for 5 years and played in 4 Queensland Cup grand finals, and lucky enough to win 2 of them, and had some great times and some great memories there.
Mate, that's it's fantastic to hear. Now, let's talk about cracking first grade, cracking the NRL. Tell us about your debut and how were the nerves?
I played for Redcliffe, and Brian Smith was coaching the Parramatta Eels, and I was lucky enough my last year playing for the Dolphins. I won player of the competition.
Wow.
And Brian gave me a train and trial contract to go to Parramatta as a fullback, and I turned up at the Parramatta Leagues Club in sort of mid-January, and rightly so, no one knew who I was, and I started training with the Parramatta top squad, and lucky enough, Brett Hodgson was the fullback at the time for the Parramatta Eels, and what a great player he was, and he was playing for New South Wales, and I played my very, very first game against Melbourne, and I think we had 5 or 6 guys on debut that day down in Melbourne, and we played a very strong Melbourne side, Scott Hill and Stephen Kearney and Matt Orford and Matt Geyer and Robbie Ross. It was a very good Melbourne side, and we beat Melbourne and with 5 guys from Parramatta on debut, and it's probably one of the only times in my whole NRL career I beat the Melbourne Storm. And so yeah, that's how it first started for me, and then I was nearly 25 years old, and I got my second game of NRL playing for Parramatta as a fullback against the Brisbane Broncos at ANZ Stadium, as it was in those days. Brett Hodgson got injured playing for New South Wales, and I was on standby, and I played against the Brisbane Broncos at ANZ and played against all the Broncos stars that backed up, and Darren Lockyer and all those legends that they had in those days. In I think 2002 that was, and lucky enough, it was my second game in first grade, and Parramatta beat Brisbane in ANZ Stadium, and I played in a really good Parramatta side with Nathan Kalis and Michael Butner and Jamie Lyon and Nathan Hindmarsh, Ian Hindmarsh, just a really good Parramatta team, and I was lucky enough to score a try and end up with man of the match, and I think that was probably the game that got me the Canberra Raiders contract.
Yeah, mate, let's jump into that now. So obviously you leave Parramatta, you sign with Canberra. What was that like, playing for a club with such a prestigious history as well, and a club like Canberra where they are isolated from probably the rest of the competition, being in the ACT? Mate, take us through what it was like there.
You know what? It's funny you say that because, as I said, my very first sort of Sydney team I followed was the Balmain Tigers. And I think, I forget how old I was 10 years old or something like that. I jumped ship to the Canberra Raiders when the Raiders beat them in the 89 grand final. So, I literally was a Raiders supporter, like Ricky Stewart, Mal Meninga, Laurie Daly. I was a Brett Nolan fan, Kenny Nagus, like Ruben Wiki, Jason Croker. It's pretty hard not to jump on the Raiders bandwagon as a young kid. And even though most of them played for New South Wales, I just love the Raiders, so when the opportunity to come and go and play for the Raiders, coming from Queensland on the Sunshine Coast, excluding the beaches, Canberra was an easy place for me to live, and I really enjoyed it. It's a great city, great people. It's a great place to go and play football. It's a great place to go and work, and so it was as much as I sort of was thankful to Brian Smith and the opportunity, and it wasn't really an opportunity for me to stay at Canberra at that point. They had Jamie Lyon, David Violecki, Brett Hodgson, who are all better players than me. So at 25 years old, you got to go and chase a first grade career, and that's why the opportunity came up for Canberra, and it really suited me at the time, and I jumped at it.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Now, let's talk about the Super League. So you went over to the Super League. You played for Catalans, I believe, as well. Take us through a bit of the difference in competition and, professionalism, sort of things like that. Take us through what the Super League was like compared to the NRL.
Yeah, I've never sort of really been asked that question publicly, and I went to the Catalan Dragons in 2006, at the end of 2006, and I'd just come off probably my best NRL season. I was lucky enough to play for Queensland a couple of times, and that was the year that Mal Meninga won his first series and went on to sort of have a long, basically win 8 straight, and had a decade of dominance, as they now call it, in Queensland. So to go over there to Catalan Dragons, it was their second year into the Super League, and I turned up there, and it was a French club, and it's a great opportunity to go over there and really grow a club. And I thought at the time they'd only just had 1 year into the Super League, so they probably had a group of players over there who were over there for the wrong reasons. But I think along with myself and actually Jason Croker from the Canberra Raiders, Aaron Gorrell, Clinker Enshields, one or two others turned up as a new batch of Aussies, but we all went over there to be really competitive and do really well. And something I'm really proud of that probably most people don't know is we went over there and we trained super hard. Club was a long way off being where it is today, but we were training in a pretty average gym, and Mick Potter and Andrew McFadden were the coaching staff and did a great job of what they had, both in terms of medical staff, club facilities. But we all turned up, and the French guys were great. Like, they were still very in the infancies of playing Super League. And to be fair, some of those kids wouldn't even have made Queensland Cup or New South Wales Rugby League, and they were playing Super League. So it's something I'm really proud of, that the Aussies that went over there in my first year lifted the standard really high. I mean, Stacey Jones was already there, which is a real honour for me to sort of play with Stacey Jones, and Casey Maguire was in the group of Aussies that went across as well in that first year. And we trained really hard, and just we had a million excuses, but we didn't use it. And we ended up in the final of the Challenge Cup in the very first year, and it was just a huge boost for that club and really put that club on the map. And so I'm really proud of that. I have played with some great players in that Catalans team. The first year, there's a couple of really good French players, but Jason Croker from the Raiders and Stacey Jones is a legend. So, but I feel like that group of Aussies that went across there really established that club and put it on the map.
I love that, mate. It's so good to hear the other side as well. Mate, let's have a bit of fun. Who was your funniest teammate you played alongside?
Mate, I probably Troy Thompson or Ryan O'Hara. It's probably Troy Thompson and Ryan O'Hara together, and nothing better than being at the back end of 5 or 6 schooners when those two are on point. They were always a heap of fun after the games, and good fellas. Really, you need those guys around footy clubs, and so they were always a bit of fun, mate.
Absolutely. And now this question can go hand in hand, but who was your strangest teammate you played alongside?
Strangest? Oh, I don't know, actually. I caught the back end of that old school, sort of footy player. So, I was lucky enough to play with a young bunch of Raiders boys coming through. Back in 2010 was my last year, and Joshy Dugan was a different beast. He could play. Like 2010. I used to come home to my wife and say, that kid's going to be a superstar if he keeps his head on his shoulders. Whether he kept his head on his shoulders or not's another thing, but he could play. That kid, like, he was, he was a real footballer, but he was also a bit different.
I love it. Mate, who was the biggest pest in the team?
Probably Tomo. Not so much as a team player, but it was just good value after the games, mate. And, he was still a Canberra legend, Troy Thompson, and still a friend of mine. And I don't talk to him that often, but I consider him a mate, and he was always a bit of a funny guy, but also a bit of a pest. I
love it, mate. Now, the next one I got for you, was there a coach that stood out to you more than any other?
Yeah, I had some good coaches, and for different reasons. And you don't like to sort of isolate, people. But Brian Smith was really good for me in a sense of where I'd come from Q Cup, making my NRL debut at nearly 25. So he had a different sort of impact on me. But Mal Meninga was great for me in State of Origin in the sense that he's a great legend, isn't he? He tells you to jump and you ask how high. But
yeah,
I've said this publicly before, and Phil Jauncey is a performance psychologist, and met him in the emerging camp, which Mal put together as the first emerging camp of the Maroons. And, he was a guy that I still talk to day, and special human, a lot of respect for him. He's worked with Wayne Bennett for probably every bit of 30 years, and He was probably the guy that had the biggest influence on my footy career, and not a coach, but certainly, certainly had the biggest impact on me.
Yeah, mate, I love it. Now, let's talk state of origin. You played a couple of games for Queensland. Let's first talk about how you got there and what was it like playing in that different atmosphere to club footy.
Yeah, well, I got there probably on two accounts. One was sheer hard work, and the other one was a bit of luck. And and Queensland were on the back end of 3 straight losses for New South Wales, and we had a Queensland emerging team, and I was in that. Justin Hodges was in that, Sean Berrigan, Dallas Johnson, Cameron Smith, Cooper Cronk, and they weren't superstars at that point. They were just kids coming through, and that's why I was an emerging side. But Greg Inglis got injured, and I was playing reasonable football for the Raiders, and got my call up to play for the Maroons, so I was 28 years old, making my debut for Queensland and playing at Suncorp, mate, in front of 50,000 Queenslanders at what us Queenslanders still call Lang Park, and that was the same field I watched Wally Lewis play on. And for me, I'm very lucky to have had that opportunity, and I'm very honoured to have had that opportunity, and I still have great memories, and it was something that I can remember to this day. And Queensland were always going to win that night. New South Wales won game 1, and we just trained really, really hard that 10 days prior, Lockie, Steve Price, Pedro Silva were pretty well all told if Queensland don't win that year, that their state of origin career was all but over. So
Wow.
there's a lot of pressure on us as Maroons, and to be part of that sort of team that delivered was now goes down in history and folklore, and to play a small part in that and do your job, something that I'm super proud of. But it was a real honour, mate. It was a dream come true for me, and not everyone gets to live their dream, and I certainly did that night.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I want to ask you about the hatred that they talk about between New South Wales and Queensland. Now, for the players, I know amongst fans it can be a real thing. Is it the same amongst players, or do you guys get along pretty well?
Oh, it's been obviously a while since I played, but look, at the end of the day, it's every player is really passionate about their club team, but when it comes to state of origin, the stakes are higher, mate. Like that, they just are. You're playing. You play for your state, and you play for all your teammates and all your fans, and you play for your family, and so the stakes are a lot higher. And if you look at state of origin, particularly over the last 2 decades, mate, every year it's just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and that adds to the occasion. And you don't. The reality is you don't even know the players you're playing against as far as personality wise, but but you go out there with that real hatred mentality because you need to win and you want to win, and there's everything's on the line. So I don't think NRL players hate each other at all, but there's an element of, hey, we're going to win this, and if it means I've got to step on your toes or punch you in the face, well, that's what we'll do to win. And that's what the game loves, and it's what the fans love, right? They love that physicality. Yeah, they love the hype and they love the physicality. And as much as it doesn't sit well in the modern game, seeing the fights and the old school dirty play, the reality is that's all in the highlights. And that's what the game markets itself on, the passion and the hatred, and then when the players go out on the field and do it nowadays, they get suspended. But the reality is the game cashes in on it and promotes it. So it's all part of the state of origin theatre.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. let's jump into a bit of life after footy. How was retirement for you?
I really struggled, mate, the first 2 years after I retired. And for me, I didn't get into the NRL until I was late as a
Yeah.
25-year-old. And I've said this to people post rugby league, and I coached the Redcliffe Dolphins for 6 years and had a great time and won premierships there. But so I got to continue being involved in rugby league, but I struggle with it, and most players do. And the best way I can describe this is, as a 9, 10, 12-year-old, your dream is to play rugby league in the NRL, and other kids have other dreams. They want to become pilots and they want to become school teachers or whatever it may be. But as an NRL player, your career is over at 30, 31, 33, 35. And it's really, really hard to adjust in life after that because, A, you've lived your dream at such a young age. And yes, it's easy to say, well, celebrate that. But what do you do now? What do you do next? Yeah. And the other thing playing NRL is, you get used to the dopamine drip. You get used to running out in front of big crowds, and you get used to the fear of getting injured in contact, and you thrive on that. And all of that stops, mate. And so what do you do now at such a young age as a young man? And now it's young women. They're going to learn that over the next decade or two. What they've lived their dream. What do you do now? And money's one thing, and that also turns off. And but yeah, for me, I struggled for a couple of years, no doubt about that. But you find your way in life, and I'm really passionate about property, and my wife and I got a property business, and we love property development, but nothing replaces running out of Suncorp in front of 50,000, or playing a Challenge Cup final in front of 84, or even running out of Canberra on a Sunday. Like Canberra on a Sunday with like 15,000 Raiders fans is an unreal day, right? So yeah, you miss it, mate. You miss it.
Absolutely, mate. The next question I had was, did you stay involved in the game? You talked a little bit about coaching the Redcliffe Dolphins there. Take us through a little bit of that.
Yeah, mate, I really enjoyed my time there coaching, and I also was assistant coach at the New Zealand Warriors for a season under Andrew McFadden, and mate, I really enjoyed that as well. New Zealand people are great people. It's a great club, and I didn't want to stay on there. I wanted to come back to Queensland, and then Redcliffe reached out to me about coming down there as a coach. And first year we made the grand final, and I was the longest serving Dolphins coach in the history of that club, which I'm really proud of. It's got a long history, the Redcliffe Dolphins, and I've been there 6+ seasons, and made the semi-finals every season, and won a grand final and lost a grand final, and felt like I'd given back, and was hoping to be the first NRL coach there, and the NRL decided that the right move for the club, and the Dolphins decided that it was Wayne, and I respected that. He sort of corporate-wise, I felt like that was a really smart move for the Dolphins and the NRL, and proved very much to be that. And so I decided that I didn't want to be second. I wanted to be first, and it wasn't meant to be, and it was my time to move on.
Yeah, very nice, mate. Look, good to see that you had some success there as well. Mate, let's talk a bit of current rugby league now. If there was one rule that you could change currently in the NRL, what would it be?
Yeah, good question.
There's a few for me.
yeah. Look, and look, I will say, and I don't know him from a bar of soap, but I'm a big fan of Peter V'landys. I think what he's done for the game is, I love guys in those positions that make decisions and just get on with it. And I'm a massive fan of him, mate. He's so, mate. But I understand why the bunker's there. I really do. But I'd probably scrap it.
Yeah.
I know it's there. It's there primarily to try and get decisions right, and it also creates a lot of revenue through marketing, and there's a lot of marketing and sponsorship dollars that go into the bunker for advertising. But I'd probably scrap the bunker. Just brush it and get on with it, because referees make mistakes, but players make way more. And
exactly.
And referees have way more decisions in a game than any player ever will, And so, as a coach, I used to whinge about referees, but at the end of the day, you put yourself in the middle of that. You're refereeing 26 players. The game's got faster and faster. Let them make mistakes, not highlight it. And I think the bunker highlights it. So just get rid of the bunker and let the referees make mistakes.
Yeah, I think a big thing for me is just letting games flow as well. There's sometimes where stoppages don't need to be stopped. Obviously, if it is a penalty, it's a penalty. But there's just sometimes where the game doesn't need to be stopped. And I think let the game flow. Let some things happen. Obviously, if it's a forward pass, call it. That's another thing they're quite bad on, in my opinion, is getting forward passes right. You see a ball go back, and then the interpretation is it's just grey. It's not black and white. So there's a couple of things there, but I'm a big believer in what you said there about the bunker being scrapped. I just think go back to the ref, let the ref make the decision and move on. Maybe bring benefit of the doubt back even. That might be good.
Yeah, and mate, remembering that the game's got a lot faster. I look at the game now. I think I watched a few games over the weekend. I think there was a ball in play for 12 minutes.
Yeah.
And that actually was longer than the grand final. So we're in round 1 of 25, and there was a game where the ball in play was 12 or 13 minutes. Mate, that's a long time. I remember back in Q Cup when I was coaching, which is not that long ago in terms of footy wise, but certainly in my life, it feels like a long time ago. I think the grand final in Q Cup, the ball was in play for 5 minutes before a knock on or a stoppage. And the NRL's now up to 12 minutes in round 1 of 25. So Peter Philandis and the referees are definitely delivering in that aspect. But I think the stoppages come based on fatigue and the bunker, and and probably the other thing I changed too, which didn't happen, sort of a decade ago, is players now play the bunker and they play the replay, and if you didn't have the bunker, they can't do that.
Yeah, that's right.
Like if you sort of faked a head knock with Gordon Tallis, you'd want to make sure that the next run at Gordon Tallis that you ran pretty hard, eh? You know what I mean? Or Ruben Wiki or Jason Cronk.
Yeah.
If you're going to fake getting one around the head, next time you're getting one around the head. And I know the game's changed. I know all that. But the bunker is fed that beast. It's fed it.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, mate. Well, let's move on to our next question. Now, if you had one piece of advice for a young guy coming through, a teenager, a guy or girl, what advice would that be?
Yeah, mate. Good question. And for me, it's keep playing.
Nice.
Don't worry about contracts at 17, 18, 19 or 20. Most of those contracts fall over. Most of those contracts aren't worth the paper they're written on. If you really love the game, just keep playing, keep getting better. If you get better, if you get better 5 or 10% a year, by the time you're 24, 25, you'll get your opportunity. I think someone made their debut this year, 27, for one of the teams. So someone, I can't. I do. It was Tristan Hope who played for Redcliffe.
Yes.
And played for Winnamanly at the Tigers. So Tristan Hope played for Redcliffe and Winnamanly in the Queensland Cup. And, that's the lesson to kids playing New South Wales Cup and Queensland Cup. keep playing. If you're serious about playing NRL, just keep playing. You will get there if you keep improving, And I think don't get caught up trying to be the next Payne Haas or Reece Walsh, because they're special athletes, right? And most kids aren't that. Most kids don't have that genetics and genes and whatever. So just keep playing, and the game will give you an opportunity sooner or later.
I love that, mate. Now, before we finish up, early prediction. I know we've seen one round of footy already, mate. Who's going to win the comp in 2025?
I jumped on the Panthers bandwagon only because I love seeing winning teams keep winning. I reckon it's harder to do that than it is to win one.
Oh yeah.
Look, Nelson Solomano didn't play for the Storm last weekend. He's playing for the Sunshine Coast Falcons this weekend. So Melbourne Storm have got a pretty serious outfit this year. And I reckon that if they don't win it this year, they'll see it as a season that got away on them, and obviously got a great coach. And I think Pappenhausen is a really, really key player for that club.
Oh, yeah.
And they got that other kid at fullback as well. But
Falongo.
Yeah, he's a gun as well. So he's playing for the Sunshine Coast Falcons this weekend in Q Cup. But I just got a feeling Pappenhausen adds a lot of smarts to that football team. Like when he's out on that team, they just seem to be a way better attacking side. So I reckon, I watched them play last weekend, and round one, wow, mate, wow. Put Nelson in that team, and that's a pretty serious footy team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think them and Brisbane are looking really good at the moment. Brisbane looked fast. I know it was against an understrength Roosters side, but I thought the Broncos looked really, really good under Madge and Storm, as you said. I think Storm are going to be there or thereabouts as they are most years. So I think Bellamy really wants to prove that he can win a grand final without the big three. He hasn't done that yet. Even in 2020, he still had Cam Smith. So, yeah, I think that's what he wants to prove.
Yeah, I think they've got the team for it. I don't disagree with what you said with Brisbane. They've got some pretty serious depth, Brisbane. Well, they're definitely going to be up there. I think the Panthers will be up there. I think the Panthers probably don't have the same amount of strike as Brisbane and Melbourne. But in saying that, I think they have a very, very good culture, a very good coaching staff.
Yeah.
I can't see it coming from anyone else other than those three, to be honest. And it's going to be good watching those teams play each other.
Absolutely. But that's all we got time for on this special guest interview for the Ruck Infringement Podcast. We want to thank Adam Mogg for joining us. Don't forget you can check us out on all social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X, Spotify, and of course on our YouTube channel at the Ruck Infringement Pod as well. And don't forget to check out all of our sponsors, Jersey King, Stay Fancy Eyewear, Koala Mowers, Gibson's Country Style Jerky, SC Rings, TVC Live, and of course, the big one, the NRL. Until next time, I'm Joey. That's Adam. Be good.